It's Will Shawn Podcast. The internet cried out for two more blowhards, and they courageously answered that call. Armed with the weapon of wit, each week they're joined by guests to discuss movies, television, pop culture, and anything else that's pissing them off. Take it away, boys.
I'm Will Link.
And I'm Sean David.
And this is Will Shawn Podcast.
R.I.P. Leah Adler. How you doing, Will?
Well, that threw me.
Yeah. Do you know who she is?
No.
Spielberg's mom.
Oh.
She owned a kosher restaurant in the Pico Robertson.
She just died today?
Literally today, yeah. She was 97. She was very well known because she had a restaurant called the Milky Way, and she would just be there all day long just talking to all the patrons.
Well, I like Spielberg.
Yeah.
I like Spielberg's mom. I'm sorry, she's dead.
And she had signed posters of all his movies, like when you go to the bathroom there in the restaurant.
Well, I would hope so.
Yeah, she's got to hook up.
How am I doing? Well, my mom, who's very much alive.
Yes.
As of recording this podcast. That's
dark.
She was just in town.
Yeah.
And it rained the whole time, off and on, which is terrible because she comes here to escape the New York weather and come to nice, sunny Southern California. And let me tell you what, that rain, I'd never seen rain like this. There were down the street, this giant sinkhole.
That's right, I had to avoid Laurel Canyon today.
There was water, the window was filling up with water, and water was shooting down from it.
Here?
Yeah. My the ceiling, there are all these big in my bedroom, there's these giant watermarks now, so
I see it there, yeah.
Yeah, they gotta fix this thing.
It's no good.
This rain, no good. In my courtyard, all the shingles blew off the roof. There was a courtyard full of shingles. I was stomping on shingles. It's not good.
Nah. Maybe
This is fucking stupid. It's stupid fucking
But it's good,
rain.
We need it.
And we didn't need this much. Can't they just spread it out more? So that's what I've been up to. I've been dealing with that. What's been going on in the world of Will Shawn Podcast?
Want to remind everyone that they should be subscribing to us on iTunes. Leave us a star rating and a comment so other people can find the show. Make sure you're following us on Twitter, liking us on Facebook. One of our former guests, Jessie Conweiler, has a new podcast called Schmucks. And on her first episode, she had Steven Rannazzisi from the League and from your hometown of Smithtown, Long Island.
You know what?
We should call her now to have her book guest for us.
You know what? We should. Because, quite frankly, she's been on, like 3 times?
Twice, I think.
At least twice. She was going to come back a third time, and then she didn't.
She got a little too big.
We gotta hit her. You gotta hit her up again. Bring her to the opera.
Okay.
Wine and dine her. Get her back on the podcast.
I'm on it.
Also, Drunk Monkeys Radio. Listen to our friends over there. They do a terrific film podcast. And
you on a recent episode?
I was on a recent episode, but it was all breaking down the Oscars.
Okay.
It's by the time you hear this.
Which is dropping after the Oscars will have aired.
Yeah, you will, so it's moot.
Okay.
I mean, go listen to it.
But listen, we have a far better Oscar episode than, just if we're being honest.
That's...
shots fired.
Shots fired. And I also want to give a
beef.
shout out. I was talking to, actress, and I guess writer as well. Her name's Abby Walla.
Yeah.
I don't know if our guest knows who that is now.
Nope.
They shake their head now. Anyway, she was. We're looking to book her on the show, but we can't book her until like a little later in the year. So I wanted to give a shout out to holidayhostage.com, which is the link to her Indiegogo for a short film that she's putting together. So go check that out.
Give her money.
Give her money, and then she's going to come on the show and talk about how you gave her money.
Oh, and one last thing. Elia Reza, former guest, is on the new FX show Legion. I think her first scenes are in episode 3.
Excellent.
Yes.
Oh, look at that. Yeah. Will Shawn Podcast guests doing well for themselves. Who's our sponsor this week?
Half Price Arcs. Animals not included.
Because the rain.
Yeah.
I see what
it's a clever one there.
Yeah. Thinker.
I was going to make something about a sinkhole, but this was better.
On the show today, the IMDB got rid of their message boards. How am I supposed to know who all the internet trolls think is hot or not now?
And who's a cuck?
Yeah. We will discuss. Super Bowl viewing parties, Oscar viewing parties. We've just gone through all these...
Grammy nut viewing parties.
We've gone through all these parties. We've got some thoughts on what makes them good, what makes them bad. It'll be a fun topic, because God knows other things we're going to discuss today will be triggering. And speaking of parties, I got invited to a wedding. I love weddings because I love love. But there's something about this wedding I don't love. We'll discuss. But first, very excited to have back to the show.
Yeah. It's been
Jonathan Bradley Welch.
Boys, hi.
Welcome back.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Returning champion.
Yeah. Returning champion. This is suddenly Jeopardy.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's great to be back. I love that you have all these successful former guests.
Yes.
So it's like
As we say, they move on, we stay behind.
yeah, you guys are like the little waving cat in a Chinese restaurant that brings good luck.
You know what it is? We're more like the John the Baptist. Mm-hmm. We don't make it to the end of the
Saints of
story.
podcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's better than when I refer to us as the good luck Chuck of podcasts.
Well, yeah.
But that's what we're kind of like that.
Yeah.
With every
little bit.
passing year, I think people are becoming less familiar with the iconic Dane Cook, 2011 film.
Yes, his signature piece.
Wait, Jonathan, we wanted to have you back on the show. Because, I mean, up until now, I've primarily known you as, like, storyteller.
Sure.
All around funny guy.
Oh, thanks.
Running a very special episode.
I did run a very special episode.
And I'd see you in all these shows, but you're kind of
It's out of the game.
out of the game. You've almost given it all up.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, giving it all away.
This massive storytelling empire.
Yeah, just had to walk away from this wonderful bounty.
you and Michael Sheen
Yeah.
both had to walk away from your big burgeoning creative careers.
Yeah.
It's like when Cal
Tough
Penn went to go work for the
choice.
White House.
That's right.
Yeah. But it's because of what happened. What happened to our nation.
Yeah, what happened to us?
Real fast. I mean, back on episode 99, you could get your full backstory, but give the people who might not be Wilshire podcast completists just a little bit of your background.
Sure. So I, of course, like you said, we met in storytelling. I had a storytelling show that ran for about 4 years called A Very Special Episode. And we focused on 1980s TV and used that as kind of like our jumping off point for a lot of the people that came on the show. So I loved doing that. I have a wonderful relationship with camp and with the 1980s and a fascination with that decade I was born in. But before that, and kind of as that continued on, I have had a history in politics. I worked in Democratic politics for a number of years, in and out. I worked on campaigns. I worked in administrations. I worked for the party, and I sort of kept leaving and coming back to it. So I stepped away from politics in 2012, and I sort of figured, we've got this.
Yeah.
Everything's great.
Just when you thought you were out, they pulled you back in.
Everything's good. There's really no need to keep working because everybody kind of is on the same page here, aren't we? Lo and behold, we're not.
So what the hell happened? Not
Yeah.
We need a full
obviously,
diagnosis.
but like what
Yeah.
happened? Because here's the thing: you were a big Hillary supporter.
I was a huge Hillary supporter from the jump.
As you know, I am as well. I still have her fucking faces on my refrigerator.
I am still with
She
her.
judges you each time you go for a cookie.
Every time
She's looking at you and saying,
Not so much. Maybe a
don't.
little less with the deli meats.
"Don't go for that. Your milk's bad."
I mean, the polls told me she would win.
Don't drag Poland into this.
I went into that night, election night, extremely confident.
Oh, yeah.
Almost cocky. Like, I woke up that morning and I voted like at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is going to be the great day. Me and Sean were at a party. There was champagne.
Oh,
ready.
yeah.
And then there was real pain.
The champagne gives way to real pain.
So, what was your election night experience?
Oh, okay. So I went to a party as well. A writer friend of mine who lives in the Valley and throws great parties and was also a really huge Hillary supporter from the get-go. She threw a party, so I got a few people together and we went down. But by the time I got in the car, I knew that it was over. And my friends who were picking me up, they were like, well, we don't know yet. And I knew.
Yeah.
I knew as soon as the first returns started coming in because I saw that gap was just so wide.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think we've spent the past few months trying to figure out what happened.
It's only been a month.
And diagnosing.
Oh, no, since he got elected. Yeah, that's
since
right.
the election.
Yeah.
I know, yeah. We've spent the past 7 years of the third term of the Trump presidency. No, but it's been I have to say, like, after it happened, I was really in a state of mourning, and I was really angry and just upset and sad, and all the emotions.
I was really shell-shocked. Like,
I had it. I was good.
You were
You're holding stronghold.
I mean, here's where
Didn't leave the house, maybe.
Oh, I left the party. I had to go home.
I did too, actually. I left the party that I was at.
After begging for a Xanax from the host.
Yeah. There was nothing. I couldn't drink.
Yeah.
You know, like I could.
I stopped drinking.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I was having a drink watching it, and when I realized it was starting to turn, I'm like, I better stop drinking, because if I keep drinking, I will never stop drinking. And
It's just going to keep going out of control.
I was holding it together because I was still on the... And I was texting with some friends from out of states who aren't as maybe politically savvy. Not that I'm the most political, but they're like, "What's happening? What's happening?" I'm like, "Look, she's got Pennsylvania and Michigan.
It's a long night.
It's a long night. We'll be fine. We'll be fine." It wasn't until Sean, you started to panic. And then I started to lose it. And I think when you saw I started to lose it, you're like, you can't handle Manic Will losing it because you were... So then you had to leave.
Yeah.
And there was a stretch of this party that I was at. The worst party.
A gathering. It was a sad,
wake.
somber gathering.
Where no one spoke for 45 minutes. Like we
And everyone just on their phones. Just
we
like...
just sat there like... I mean, it was bad.
Don't go to a party like that where there are a lot of people above your station who are at this party, because they're fine. And as upset as they may be, they would say, like, well, we're fine, and we're in California, and there are...
And I have lots of money.
And I have money, and I have a few houses, and we have a script that we sold and everything. And that's not my life at all. But I do okay for myself. And
Well, your storytelling empire.
yes, with that, I sold it, as you know, to
Cashed out,
to get
you know?
into something else. But I do okay. But it seemed as though there were a lot of things at stake. There are a lot of things at stake. There are a lot of things at stake for my personal freedom, and a lot at stake with my family and people who I love across the country, and people who I don't even know. And I think I have a sense of empathy for a lot of people in the working class and people, minorities and immigrants. And I've just always kind of had this sense that we're all in it together, because we are. As a part of our country goes, so does the rest. And it just seemed so devastating to think of all of the progress we've made and all of those people who really count on the policies that we've put into place, and that our leaders have put into place in the past decade. They count on those things.
Yeah.
So it felt like a slap in the face. And I actually had a friend that night who texted me, and she knew that I worked in politics. Obviously, she's known me for years, and she just said, "I'm so sorry that this country has betrayed you." That was big. That was heavy.
That would be, it was funny. You talk about people and people who have more at stake than you. There's a girl that I follow on Twitter. She follows me. We kind of became Twitter friends because of the Orphan Black podcasting I do.
Oh, yeah.
She was following, like, me talking about Orphan Black. Then we became, like, I guess not real life friends, but, like, very good friends on Twitter. She was a big Hillary supporter. I was big. And she's also considerably younger than me. She's a lesbian. She lives in D.C., so she's very politically, like, attuned to what's going on.
She's dialed in.
And at a certain point in the night, like, I just, like, DM'd her, like, and we were both like, what is happening? And I just, like, the DMs back and forth, they were just so upset. And that oddly hit me more than even anyone I know, more than people I was with. That was, like, the emotional thing that hit me. Here's this person who I know who does have probably more to lose than me.
Oh, yeah.
In a lot of ways. And I've never met her, but I'm so, like, worried about her and how she's dealing with this. And that was when I think it hit me. Also, luckily, I didn't have to watch Hillary speak that night. And then the next day, I was listening to it on the way to the car. I feel like if I had watched it, I would have been like in a mess.
I still haven't watched it. Listened to it.
I couldn't watch it. I could not watch it. I still to this day haven't watched it in its entirety. I've seen bits and pieces.
Well, you see, with the Taiwanese, they did those animations of it.
Did they? Oh yeah.
But you know what? Here's what really. Because the next couple of days I was in like the funk of all funks, and then that Saturday right after I went downtown to the protest that was going on, and that made me feel better because one, it was good to be around like-minded people. Sure. It also showed like, so many people are feeling the same horrible things I'm feeling. But you went one step further with all this. You were like, I got to talk about this. I got to be out there. Dealing with these issues and talk about this. So you started a podcast, and this is now this is the big setup. This is all the big intro to get to the Big Blue To Do podcast.
Correct. That is the podcast I decided to start. It took me a little while when it all happened to sort of figure out and reconcile my emotions and see what I could do and where my strengths could be lent. And I felt like what the biggest deficit was that we don't talk about politics in a constructive and easy way. We don't make it relatable. And ultimately, it was people who felt like politics weren't relating to them and the party that represents their values and represents the things that they actually care about more just wasn't speaking to them. So I wanted to start a podcast where every week I talk to a comic or a writer, a friend of mine in the comedy world, who has some insight on what to do, how to approach things, how to kind of make sense of everything that's going on. Because if there's anything that's happened, I've noticed that people are really dialed in and they're actually making changes and they're doing the work. Like, I've never seen my social networks so engaged in politics in my life.
I mean, even that you see now, right before you came here, I was watching Mad Out, and almost like the first half hour was just all about all the representatives going back
holding
to their
town halls.
Or getting trashed in their town halls.
Oh God, I mean, they are really setting themselves up by just walking in the room.
And it is great. Like the women's march right after the inauguration, I couldn't even get downtown. That's how many people there were. I had to start I didn't start, but there were hundreds of people at the North Hollywood station. They realized they wouldn't be able to get down there for like 2 or 3 hours, so we were all just like, let's just march here. And we just want. And at first I was a little disappointed I couldn't get down, but then I was kind of happy about it. I'm like, I'm so glad to see that there are so many people. But here's the problem. And this is, let me ask you this, and I wonder if you've had this fear with your podcast or just in life.
Sure.
Are we all just preaching to the choir? Are we breaking out of our bubble? Are we getting... And can we even get a Trump people to see what I think is like the sensible way?
Well, for example, like the town hall meetings here, like all of our representatives are solidly in our corner. So you can go to the town hall and you can like thank them, but it's not going to be, it's not someone you want to throw out of office.
I already know Kamala Harris is on my side.
Of course she is. Yeah, Kamala Harris is on your side. Adam Schiff is my congressman, and I know he's on my side. But I think what we need to look at is what's going on across the country in places we wouldn't expect. The same day that, Will, you were trying to march downtown, I was marching downtown, and I know people across the country were doing it in cities like Los Angeles, Boston, D.C., obviously D.C., where the heart of the march was, but we had a pretty huge one here in L.A., too. But, in major metropolitan cities that we would imagine people would do this in, they were doing it, but they were also doing it. But they were also doing it down south, and they were also doing it in the Midwest, and they were doing it in small towns, and, Fargo, North Dakota, and
But here's the thing, so even like, for example, so even in Boise, even in Fargo, there are still Democratic votes, and we're still Hillary supporters.
Yes.
These people do exist.
Well,
yes. But I think that people within the time of Donald Trump getting elected and him taking office actually, first of all, there was a little bit of a Brexit effect where people who maybe voted for it because they wanted to shake things up didn't actually think that this was going to happen. So when it happened, the shock sort of wore off, or a new shock applied to the situation, and they felt like, oh my God, this is actually really happening. How do we react? Because this is consequential.
Right.
People actually came to understand that their health care was in jeopardy, that their neighbors were in jeopardy, that women's rights were up, on the chopping block. So
there's this kind of thing where people didn't really believe, like, oh, Trump just saying this stuff. He can't really do this. They won't really just take away everyone's health care. They won't
lot
really
of people
build
believe
a wall.
That. Yeah. There are, and when you guys ask, are we going to convert Trump supporters? I really don't think that we're going to convert the hardcore Trump supporters who read Breitbart and watch Fox News and like Tomi Lahren. And all of these conservatives who go beyond the pale of conservatism and they just go into just flat out hatred. And that's the pulpit that they stand on. Those people are never going to come over to our side. But there are a lot of people who voted for Donald Trump, or maybe who voted for third parties and saw what happened, and they're horrified that he's actually president, and that not only that he's actually president, but that he's doing some of the things that he's doing. Like, he's betraying a lot of the people who voted for him.
Well, the best diagnosis I saw or read was looking towards Italy and Berlusconi and how, they attacked him over and over again. Oh, look, he's got the bunga bunga parties and he's a corrupt but that wasn't what, people were attracted to that. It was when they finally held him to task for, he said he was going to do this. He didn't do this.
Yes.
Your life is not better. You treat him like a boring ass politician who makes promises. And once you put him into that box, and a lot of these Trump voters are still feeling, well, maybe he can bring, jobs back. We got to try something. Maybe he can. But when these things fail to deliver, you hold him accountable like any other, because now he's, he
has to own everything.
Right. But also he was in that rambling press conference and he was saying something at one point. He goes, listen to me sounding like a politician. He goes, well, I guess I am a politician now. It's like, yep, and you're going to be held,
Hey, buddy, it's a little bit more than I guess. Like, you got elected president of the fucking United
going
States.
Back, uniting sort of your earlier storytelling on this, how does it feel losing one of the great camp icons of the 1980s, Donald Trump?
Oh God, I never thought of him as a camp icon.
He wasn't? Okay.
1980s, I mean, yes, he was.
Could have ended up being a giant camp icon.
Yeah,
if not for all this.
Well, I think that he could have gone down a very different road, but I think that somewhere around the early 2000s, he started getting into this new persona of The Apprentice and the wrestling bullshit that happened, and just everything that he kind of built himself on in the 80s is very different. He's a very different person.
Why did he do this? Because he clearly cannot, here's the thing. I grew up with Donald Trump on the front pages of the news all the time, living in New York, and he was always this kind of wacky New York character. And you'd see him walk down the streets. He'd stop and talk to people. He'd be in his favorite restaurants. People were like, hey, Donald.
Well, he misses going out to eat every day. He's like a complete extrovert.
For as much as I hate the man, he's somebody
he's punished in his own hell.
Person.
He ruined his life.
He did.
Because the Trump name is now always going to be synonymous with some form of American fascism.
Yeah.
And he's shitting on Meryl Streep. He loves Hollywood. He loves these people. He wants to be one of them.
Yeah.
Why did he do this?
Well, it's interesting, and it's because he always wanted to be one of those people. He wanted to be one of the people who the New York Times would rally behind and talk about, because he was a New Yorker, but he was never really loved by New York.
He's the Vinny Chase of
culture.
New York.
Yeah, you look at people who've done biographies on Trump or documentaries, and the story's the same. Here's somebody who took his dad's Queens-based real estate empire and brought it to Manhattan because he always had a bigger ambition for himself and a bigger view of himself than reality. And that has always been the case. And I don't think he ever wanted to do the job of president of the United States, but he wanted to be called president.
He wanted to win.
Yes.
He didn't want to be president, but he wanted to win.
So, when it became evident that and we thought for a very long time that he wasn't going to win. And there are a lot of factors here. There are a lot of directions we can go with that conversation. We can bring Russia into it. We can talk about, how it came down to very few votes and how he wasn't prepared, didn't have really a transition team on the
Still
ground.
hasn't.
Still doesn't. Still has a lot of federal positions that are open.
Hundreds.
Yeah. Oh, many. Yeah. I think there's about 500 something. The numbers are not.
And you also have so many
right
people leaving government right now.
You do.
Specifically so they can talk about what is happening.
Yeah, there's turnover.
There's a lot
turnover.
of people in the intelligence agencies who are specifically leaving their jobs just so they can be writing op-eds for the Washington Post and stuff like that. So
and the failing New York Times.
Yeah.
I mean, do you buy the theory of that all these leaks are happening because it's like... I mean, I guess this is a very viable theory. All these leaks are happening just to save the country. Yeah. Like, just be like, we're going to leak
But
all
this has happened in the
stuff.
past also with the intelligence community when they don't necessarily agree with the president or direction. They'll leak to get it out there so that there's pushback in the other direction that they, One interesting article I read, this was during the campaign, it was by a British writer, I don't remember whom, said that one thing that the Brits got right is that they separate out the roles of mascot and government. And we don't. And the problem is that if we had, Trump wants to just be called president and all the trappings of it, just like they have the queen. Okay, Trump, you could be king, but then we have the serious people doing the actual job. And the problem is that we don't separate those functions. So, we end up with this kind of nonsense. Well, even to Obama to a certain degree was also kind of like mascot and politician.
Yeah, but I mean, he knew what he was doing.
The cult of personality, right? But there's the cult of personality. The cult of personality that gets married to the functioning aspect of the government. Where,
I think we absolutely saw that during the election too. People got behind Bernie Sanders in a way that made it so that they could not get behind Hillary Clinton, even though they stood with the same positions.
Which drove, honestly, those are the people who drive me even more nuts than the Trump supporters. The people who, at the end of the day, were like, I am like, nope, they're equally bad. I would have voted for Bernie. They're equally bad. No, Hillary is not.
She's not. There's no comparison. There is no comparison. I know we can't. That's the thing.
Can't keep
I hate
rehashing
it. I hate rehashing the Bernie versus Hillary debate, and I hate proxy debates because there are a lot of those going on, especially with the DNC chair. And by the time this episode airs, we'll know who that person is. But
is it going to be Keith Ellison?
I think it's probably going to be Tom Perez.
And that's going to drive all the Bernie people
and that'll
crazy.
Drive them crazy, I suppose.
I have no problem with Keith Ellison.
I don't either. Part
of me almost feels like give it to him.
Yeah,
it's please the progressives and let's.
I'll tell you what I have a problem with: the DNC not having solid leadership, and
but that takes time to rebuild, and that's where your podcast comes in.
Right.
Yeah, let's get back to the podcast. This is going to be a long episode. So the podcast, you have like a lot of people from the comedy world.
I have
people that you've some people who've even been on this show too. Mm-hmm. So, what function do you think comedy serves in this new regime? Like, what do you
in this regime?
I
I think that some of the more honest conversations that we can have with each other and with other people come through comedy, because as comedians we tend to take our own walls down and we don't necessarily censor ourselves, and I think that's a very important thing to do. I think a lot of people have a hard time talking politics. They say don't bring up politics or religion.
Yeah.
And my mom always said, like, always talk about politics and religion. Always do that. There are things that you don't bring up in conversations. You never talk about somebody's weight, somebody's baby plans, or somebody's marriage plans, because you don't know what's going on there. But by all means, talk about religion and politics, because those are things that matter.
Yes, those things that matter. And those other things you mentioned, those are very personal things. And I think people think politics is such like a personal, but no, it's something that affects us all. Yeah. It's something, people need to be informed. People need to have political discussions. I hate when people like, I don't want to talk politics, or I hate when people are like, I don't pay attention.
Well, you get less of that. To be fair, I haven't heard any of that in a while. Everyone's got an opinion these days.
Everyone does.
No one's. I haven't heard anyone in a while say, "I don't talk politics."
Yeah, all we do is talk politics now.
Yeah.
That's all we're doing. So, which is good, and that's part of what's going to help break the walls down.
But let me ask you if this is good. I feel like everything.
Got to build the wall bigger. Wall just got 30 feet higher.
The wall, okay.
Wall's not happening.
Yeah, come on.
Do you like? I feel like everything is political now,
Yeah.
and that also though does drive me crazy a little bit because, when I was on, when we were talking about Oscar picks last week. I mean, we had to get into this thing of like, well, is like Moonlight the more political? But Moonlight isn't necessarily a political movie.
No.
I mean, it happens to be about two groups of people who have been more marginalized, whereas La La Land is, just
the
Happy
people
white
who've
people.
always had their cake.
Happy hetero white people.
Exactly.
But-
Yep. Dancing along because they have no care.
But I also feel like it's unfair to brandish Moonlight as some political movie, where to me it's just a very human movie.
And then
would we be having that discussion if Donald Trump wasn't president?
Sure, and would we be frowning on La La Land so much,
Exactly.
or would we be putting things on pedestals, And I think it's interesting that you bring that up with the Oscars because, of course, we are a year out from the Oscars So White issue, and so of course,
but we fixed it. We're good.
Yeah, we're done.
so-
Racism's over.
Denzel's going to win an Oscar. We're good.
Yeah,
We're gonna
everything's
have-
going to be perfect.
I think we're going to have, and we'll know by the time you're listening to this if
Yes.
it's true, but I think we're going to have 3 black winners in the acting category. So yeah, racism is solved.
Yeah,
Next
it's
problem.
solved. Let's move on
And
to the
also,
next
Donald
thing.
Trump is the least racist person in the world.
Oh,
At least
absolutely.
anti-Semitic, and he'd be offended that you
That's
even
right.
suggest such a thing.
That's right, which is such a Kellyanne Conway way of thinking, isn't it? Like, how dare you call me that?
Yeah.
How dare you say that?
So let's get back to the podcast.
Yeah, we just keep trailing off from the podcast, but yeah, go ahead.
So
Well, I just subscribed right now. That's what I was doing. So.
Oh, good. Thank you.
you've
And
been-
rate, subscribe,
I will.
rate.
Well, you know what? I subscribed. I did not rate. I'm not practicing what I preach.
You gotta
I
help a
rate.
brother
You're
out.
Right. I will rate after
Okay.
this. So you have these guests.
Yeah.
Also, here's the thing. Like I was listening to you talking to Sean Binder.
Binder, yes.
I always want to say Bender. Sean Binder.
Yeah, certainly not Bender.
I know. And you were having a very calm discussion.
Yeah.
And I haven't listened to all 5 episodes yet.
Okay.
But I realized, like, if I was on your show, I would be screaming and cursing for, like, an hour straight. Because that's what I do here. And I was listening to you, and I'm like, oh, this is a very well-produced, very calm, very structured, like conversation.
Yeah.
Like, it was really good.
Well, I think
I was
have-
impressed with you I'm impressed with anyone who I know is on my side of politics now who isn't just screaming constantly.
Yeah, of course. And well, let me tell you, that's I quickly realized that is, first of all, not how I can live for the next 4 years. I cannot have
3 years, 11 months.
Yeah, or even less, maybe. Who knows? But I can't live like that. I can't scream. I can when it's appropriate, but I can't live that way and have every conversation because, as you said, everything's politicized now, and I think of everything politically. I can't like approach anybody and not think about where they lie on the spectrum of politics. So, with that in mind, I can't approach everything with this sense of anger. But what I can do is sit down and talk to people about what we can do and do it in a calm way and kind of evaluate what's been going on because a lot of these things are batshit crazy.
And there's so much.
And there's so much of it, and it's all thrown out. But what people aren't really looking at is that policy is not happening. Yeah. Policy is not, so if he's going to be successful, if the Republicans, period, are going to be successful in these next few years, they need to make policy and actually, do something. Yeah. They need to do something, and the course needs to move in a certain direction, in any direction, for people to make a decision. Right now, a bunch of banana peels are being thrown at us as we're trying to truck along, and So I have very funny people on the podcast. I tend, as a host, not to be that funny because I just want to have a conversation with them.
Well, you gotta move the thing along. You gotta give.
And I also want to have a very real conversation and kind of show that we don't have walls between us, because that's again what comedy does, is it breaks that down and you don't think about things.
Are you gonna try to have a Trump person on? Are you gonna have more?
That's not really my intent.
Okay.
That's not really my intent. My intent is to talk about how Democrats do it better, because I think that
a celebration of the Democrats
in a way, because there isn't much to celebrate, you'd think, but there is a lot to celebrate at the same time right now.
Well, this is the thing that drives me crazy, and it's something Bill Maher mentions a lot. I don't know if you watch Bill Maher. I watch Bill Maher.
I've got feelings about Bill Maher.
Well, we could discuss those real fast too.
Sure.
Since I'm almost going to throw half this rundown out the window the way things are going here. But where he talks about a lot, and I think I've seen this a little bit too.
Yeah.
How liberals, we get very nitpicky about things. Right. And it's not necessarily things that we shouldn't. Okay, here's a great example. I was listening to the Double X podcast on Slate. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about the Women's March. And then they started to talk about how the Women's March, because it's so uterus-centric, was a little not fair to trans women. And we have to figure out a way to make trans women feel more welcome.
Because defining defining gender by biology, and it's like,
and I mean, I feel like if.
Go ahead, keep digging.
I know, but I am obviously not a trans woman. I will never know what it's like to be a trans woman.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you're a trans woman and you see that Women's March and you're more angry about the Women's March not feeling inclusive than you are about other shit that's going on, then you might be part of the problem.
Well, I'd also like to know which Women's March you were at, because the one I was at was all inclusive.
No, because it was because it was the uterus. It was because of the pussy hat. So defining femininity by the pussy hat. And it's like, well, what if you don't have a pussy?
But then you can trace that back to the comment of grabbing.
So he should have grabbed a trans woman, is what you're saying.
Then that would be a completely different experience. Or if he did, then he would have been in for a surprise.
How do we, as liberals, avoid that? We have a common enemy here.
Right.
Or it would be the same. The lesser version of that is also the pushback against pro-life women's groups that want to be part of the Women's March, and they're like, no, how could you be, against abortion? It's like, maybe you don't want to fight this battle right now.
Yeah, because ultimately, I think there are a lot of things, and Hillary said this all the time, there's more that brings us together than tears us apart. And I do think that there's a lot of truth to that. I think that you can have Republican. There were a lot of Republican women who were at the march, and who they don't see themselves in Donald Trump.
Yeah,
Republicans,
but he sees himself in them.
He absolutely, he has a free pass if you ask him, and it was recorded. He has the answer. But I think that there are a lot of women who just cannot align themselves with him. And those are Republican women. Those are pro-life women. Those are women who have never really had a stake in politics and have never voted before. A lot of groups have come together to fight this. Now, what do we do with that? How do we take that and turn that into a positive gain? I think that we're doing it. I think that it's coming together. And I think that those arguments that you're talking about do exist, and we get into them. First of all, if you're getting into them on social media, just put it away. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't tweet back. Don't comment on Facebook.
Sorry.
Look at
mid-tweet
that.
you cut.
Whenever I've never anything I've tweeted, if I've had a Trump person come at me about something, I've never responded.
Sure, but there are opportunities too. I have a person.
Snowflake.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, somebody said, and a lot of people have been saying this, but what happens when a lot of snowflakes come together? It's a fucking blizzard, so watch out.
But what drives me crazy is with this whole snowflake and I'm obviously not the first person to say this, the Republicans seem to be more acting
They
like
are.
it. Like, we
Yeah.
won though.
Yeah.
Why out and march in the street?
Yeah.
They're like so sensitive to everything.
Right. How dare you exercise your constitutional rights?
We also have a right to bear arms, So
That's
they like that one.
So do we. Yeah.
We're gonna have to move on.
Okay.
But I wanted to ask one more thing.
Yes.
Since I mentioned Bill Maher and you said you have thoughts, and I'm a Bill Maher fan, so I just have to. I mean, look, I think he's probably a giant asshole.
Yeah.
But I agree with like 90% of what he says. I enjoy his show. I like that he has a lot of different people on, although recently he had somebody on that I think he made a mistake having on.
Absolutely.
But I also understand why I understand his rationale to have Milo Yippa face, whatever. I can't say his name.
Cares? Who cares who he is? Because he's going to be basically irrelevant by the time this comes out.
I think it was that same liberal thing that Bill Maher got kicked out of speaking at Berkeley. He saw this guy got kicked out of speaking at Berkeley.
Yeah.
And I think that's what his mind cared about and where his mind went, which I think was doing himself a disservice because Bill Maher is a comedian, a long-standing comedian. He's had a show for a long time. He says some things to be provocative, but he doesn't do it in a way where, like, Milo will just single out Leslie Jones and be completely racist towards her and things like that. And I feel like he almost, by having him on, was not giving himself enough credit.
Well, I think Bill Maher's smarter than Milo.
Well, yeah.
Absolutely. But I also think that there are certain people out there who are contrarian for the sake of being contrarian.
Because it sells books and makes money.
Exactly. And I do think Bill Maher has a little bit of that personality. I understand wanting to bring people of other viewpoints on, talk about those viewpoints, talk about how we can maybe, come together. But if you're doing it just to create division, then you're not achieving a damn thing. And I think that's what Bill Maher at times does. That's a crutch that he leans on. He leans into Ann Coulter in a friendlier way than I think you would think someone with his points of view would. And he brings on people because they're more sensationalist than they are able to have a good conversation
more than
constructive come out of. So if nothing's going to come out of it and it's just going to be a big explosion, then that equals ratings, and I guess good for him, but I don't really see the value in that.
All right, we got to move on.
Yeah, we do.
So we're going long. Tell people where they can find the Big Blue to do.
Yeah, it's you can find it on iTunes, and certainly if you do find it on iTunes, subscribe and rate. Give me a good rating because I'm sensitive like the president.
Is there also does the Big Blue to do have its own like Twitter feed or anything like that?
I'm on Instagram, so the Big Blue to do on Instagram. We actually post. We try to post as much as we can to let people know things that they can do, people they can call, little action items they can take, and things to celebrate.
And that's really important because I think a lot of people, I know I feel this way. Like I've called my representative.
Oh yeah,
I've donated to some organizations. I've gone to march, but I feel like what else can I do? So it's good to always have like little action items, little things, little places to direct people to. So that's another good thing about this podcast.
I try to have guests on that have very unique things that they are doing. I think all of us are kind of calling and organizing as much as we can. One thing that I wanted to bring up before we move on is we're starting to see some special election races. So I want to encourage everybody out there, if you have a few bucks to throw behind some of these special election races in Congress, there's one going on in Georgia for Tom Price's seat. There's a Democrat named John Ossoff who's a really great candidate, and he's running in a jungle primary against a bunch of Republicans who really kind of don't have their way or really have any footing. So he has a really good chance of picking up that seat. And there's also a seat open in Kansas, Mike Pompeo's district. And when we say like, oh, well, that was Republican, so we can't pick it up, that's when we lose. And I think that we have opportunities to win here. So try to take a look at some of those special elections. Try to take a look at those candidates who are running. And if you have $5, throw $5 towards them.
You ever think of moving to like Kansas, like moving to like a real
moving to a red state and helping to turn it blue? That's a good piece of advice for people who are willing to do that. I think my life is on the West Coast.
Yeah,
and
I feel
happy.
The same way.
Yeah, I purposely picked myself up from New England and I moved myself out here. I'm not going to move elsewhere.
Sean, you should move to Lincoln, Nebraska and run for the local school board.
Okay.
You should.
Get right on
listen. And that's what people should do.
How did I end up being relegated to Lincoln, Nebraska? I didn't see us...
At least not Omaha. Come on.
I didn't see us pulling straws.
Well, if you're a good listener of the podcast, you are already listening to the Big Blue To Do because we have a link to it on our Facebook page. Okay.
30 seconds on IMDb.
30 seconds on this topic. So... I went to the IMDB the other day.
Yeah.
And I went to one of their message boards because
you're bored?
I sometimes go to the IMDb message board.
Sure.
Like if there's like, I wonder what other people thought of like this weird moment in this particular movie.
Yeah.
And maybe someone commented on it. Mm-hmm. And I went there and they said, as of this week, the message boards are getting shut down. Just shutting down the message board. And it struck me as... is this a good thing? Should we be shutting down these message boards? Because one, okay, yeah, I guess a lot of it just de-evolves into, like...
the worst awful trash to come out of human beings' brains.
Do we see Scarlett Johansson's tits in this movie? And then people are like, I'd like to see her tits.
Me too, yeah.
First. Yeah. And then it's like, and it's a lot of...
First. Well, nobody's going on these message boards saying, I like that Anne Hathaway. Everybody kind of has a negative thing to say on these things.
But I think there was still some areas of the message boards where there could be thoughtful film discussion. Mm-hmm. Problem is, a troll would always jump into it. But if you just ignored him and keep going
the one thing the internet does not lack for is places for people to voice their opinions. Message boards were this weird holdover from sort of the version 1.0 of the internet, which was like bulletin boards, where you go on to like chat rooms like alt.rec, .films, and that's where people would just post before there was even the visual aspects of the internet, and those got integrated in and they got grandfathered in, and now who the fuck? We don't need these things. Not everyone should have an opinion. I'm sorry.
They've given way to the comments section.
Yes,
and you should never look at the comments section.
Oh, the comments,
like the New York Times, like most
right.
respectable publications just don't have comments anymore because those things need to be overseen. They need to be administered. Mm-hmm. They need to get all the the anti-Semitic garbage out of there and the sexist and the racist stuff.
Did you ever post on the IMDb message boards?
Never. I don't think I ever did. I don't even think I ever went there. Maybe once or twice, but I never posted.
The only time I've ever posted on the message boards was in service of this podcast.
Yeah.
When we'd have like someone like Sam Witwer from the show Being Human on. I'm like, hey guys, check out Sam Witwer on this great podcast.
Sure.
Yeah. Other than that, I never. But I got to admit, I would look at them sometimes because sometimes I'd be like trying to figure something out, like a weird. Like, did anyone else think that background extra in this movie was really weird? And like, did anyone ever have like? I guess I was always looking for, and I guess you don't
just Google. You just
need to connect with another person.
Yeah,
is what you're trying to do. It's just a person-to-person feeling.
Yeah,
and I mean, I got to admit, sometimes there'd be some obscure actress. I'm like, this obscure actress is really attractive. I wonder if
has she been nude in anything?
No, not that. But I'm like, I wonder if other people think this obscure actress is really attractive. And of course other people do.
Of course
but
they do.
But I needed these people to tell me they thought that too.
You got Agnes Moorehead thoughts? What's going on here?
I think it's still out there. You can find it. You can find probably websites that are devoted to it. One of my favorite things that ever happened to me was
MrSkin.com?
when I was running. Oh, no, what is that?
Oh, you don't know?
Oh, that's the nudity the website for all the nude
you
scenes.
You want to know anyone naked in a thing, go there. They'll tell you exactly where in the movie they're
naked. And if you pay a little money, you get to see the clip.
Oh, okay. Because there are some people I've wanted to see. But no, when I was running a very special episode, we devoted one of our live shows, to Cheers, and my co-host and I had a Shelley Long versus Kirstie Alley debate on stage, and I was team Kirsty, Team Rebecca, and I found a video that somebody made that was it was Sade.
Yeah.
It was like over Sade. I can't remember which song it was, but it was images of Kirstie Alley slowly floating over the scene of a beach, and then like it would be Kirstie Alley, and then they'd float like an image of a Ferrari, and then another picture of Kirstie Alley, and then like a mansion, and then more Kirsty, and it was just like the like beautiful things in this world. Kirstie Alley, expensive cars and mansions.
See, where do you post that stuff?
YouTube.
YouTube. It was on YouTube.
You don't need the IMDb message boards. RIP. We don't need you.
You know what? I think I would go Kirstie Alley also.
I go Shelley Long. She was intellectual.
But
but she's so annoying. But Diane Chambers,
because they weren't on the right level.
You want to know what
he didn't know? Sam didn't know how to talk to her the way I
but
could.
you know, Rebecca took Sam to a whole new place because he became the sane one.
Admittedly, one of the reasons I think I go Rebecca though is because of my age. And when the show was airing, and I wasn't watching it really, I had to go back and watch it. I knew Diane.
Diane was in the rerun.
She was reruns.
Yeah.
Like, who's this blonde?
Where I feel like I saw Rebecca from the start. Like I grew up on Rebecca.
I did too.
Yeah.
I did too because we're not far apart in age, and I grew up in Boston, or outside Boston, but you know, Cheers was a big deal.
And you went back and watched the whole series rerun. So you didn't watch it at all when you were a kid.
Although the ones that I did catch, my awareness of the show, how do we get on this? Was the Rebecca years is all, okay, we're done with the Cheers stuff.
Okay. I'm taking you to very strange places tonight. What's next?
So, IMDb message boards, whatever, fine. You're going to forget these even exist.
The day of the message board is over.
In 3 months, you'll forget these ever existed.
The reason we picked light topics, we knew we would go long on politics. But there's nothing more we talked about how we were all at a party election night.
Yeah.
The worst party we've ever been to in our life.
End of days party,
I got an email apologizing from the host of the party. Because we usually have a good time over at his place. Like, I'm so
Is that
sorry.
champagne still in their fridge?
Probably.
Pop it open for Kamala Harris in 2020.
But... You know, we were all pretty intently watching this stuff. I mean, we were talking, but we were intently watching. And it got me thinking, we're in the big viewing party season. You know, we just had the Super Bowl.
Golden Globes.
The Oscars.
Well, yeah.
And one of the problems that I've had in the past, I'll go to a Super Bowl party. And I'll be sitting there.
And people start screaming.
People who don't... I'm not going to pretend I'm a big football expert, but I know enough what's going on. And then there are these people, especially because we're in LA, and these people, a whole bunch of fucking liberal arts majors. Not that I didn't go to art school, but you know what I mean. And they don't really... and they're sitting around, and they're like... Well, you know, they're loudly in my ear shouting things like, well, you know, we got they've got a score now or they're going to lose the game. Yeah, no shit. That's how everything works. You don't
Can't we just watch?
Yeah, can't we just watch it?
Or they talk through the game and then everyone sits quietly during the commercials.
Yeah. Or I've had the opposite thing also where then it's like, oh, we should all want to see this commercial, but then everyone's screaming. Mm-hmm. Now, I used to host a much bigger Oscar party. I mean, there was one time we had about 20 people.
That's too many people.
And it was like, oh my God, nobody knows when to shut up. Now I maybe have 8 people over.
A carefully curated list of people.
Who are going to be
they had to pass a test.
We'll get all our snarky comments in while Viola Davis is walking up to the stage.
Right.
But not while she's speaking because we give a shit about what she's going to say.
Sure.
So do you go to a lot of parties like this, or am I just too anal about this stuff, or do you want to go to a thing where people are actually paying attention to this shit?
Well, here's something. I don't go to those. I just don't go to viewing parties. I have been invited many times to, because I'm just so social, but I've been invited to Super Bowl parties and to Oscar parties, and I don't go.
Do you don't go because you don't care, or do you don't go because you
I think there's a mix of that. I think that sometimes I don't care, but I want to watch. If I'm going to watch something, I'm going to watch it with intent, and I just don't go.
Yeah.
I mean, here your party. I mean, we watch pretty intently. It's never, but that's just for the award show parties. The Super Bowl party we were at this year, people were still talking, but it was like the right people. Yeah. That's the other thing too. We didn't have any randos there.
So well curated.
Yeah.
To bring your point back, there's actually, I think, some value in that to curate your group.
Because we've been to the Super Bowl parties with the random people, and
because we're talking, but I think also people knew when to shut up.
Yeah.
Like, people knew when to be quiet and watch a thing. Now, let me ask you this. Have you, I'm assuming then, does this also go for, like, TV shows? You're a big TV guy, very special episode.
Yeah, very big TV guy.
I remember when Lost was ending, and I was a huge Lost fan, and I had friends that, like, literally the next day after Lost, or sometimes later that night, I'd be on the phone with people all around Los Angeles, like, because for whatever reason I had a good mind for Lost. Like, I remembered, like, well, don't you remember?
Random made up nonsense?
Yeah. Don't you remember in season 2, episode 13, when blah, 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 and they were like, oh, I forgot about that. So I had 2 friends who were like, Will you talk to us every week about Lost? Like, want to let you know, we're having a big Lost finale party. You got to come. And I said, I'm not going to that.
No.
I said, that sounds like a fucking nightmare. Yeah. Because there'll be people there who are just casual people, just want to. I said, no, I got to
because they're fun at a party, but they never saw an episode.
Yeah. I got to sit in, like, my chair and just watch this for 2 hours and sweat and just be like, I can't have the same thing with Breaking Bad. Now, did you?
So I went to a Breaking Bad party, but it was only like 4 guys, and what we did was we watched the pilot before, we rewatched the pilot, and then we watched the final episode. But everyone was silent, and we talked during the commercials. But it was like only 4 or 5 guys. Like, it was a very small group of people. And also, Breaking Bad is a little bit more plot driven, where it's not like Lost, where there's a little bit more philosophical weight to what's going on. Like, I would not go to Mad Men for the final episode of Mad Men. It's like, no, I got to watch this by myself. I can't be around people like this. Breaking Bad, you didn't need to focus up as much because it was just a very plot heavy episode.
Plot heavy viewing, but very well done.
Right, but it was like getting there with some friends to watch like a good movie, but not something where I didn't think I was going to have like this emotional moment watching the Breaking Bad finale the way you would have with Lost or I did with Mad Men.
I mean, I didn't cry at the end of Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
but I with Lost, it's funny because I had a friend who was like, "Oh, can I watch Lost with you like every week?" Yeah. And I was like, my instinct is to say no. My instinct is to say no with anything I really care about.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll watch an episode of Game of Thrones, I think, with you, but I don't think I would watch
maybe 3 episodes of Game of Thrones. And to be fair, the only reason you watched those 3 is they happened to air right before my birthday party. And so we'd watch them and then go to the bar. But you're also not going to be, if it's just you and me, but I remember watching
that's
it with
not like
a
a viewing
friend,
party.
and it was a Lost thing. And then she would be like, wait a minute, what about this? Or wait a minute. And I was like, then during the commercial, I said, now it's a commercial. This is when we talk about these things.
Right.
We don't talk about, this is why God created commercials. So we could talk about, but not during the thing.
Because you need a break.
And then she's like, give me another chance. And she came over to watch an episode of Lost. And there was a moment where something shocking happened. A boat blew up and someone may have died. And she was like, oh my God. And then the second after she did, she looked at me like I was going to scold her. And on the commercial, I said, look, that was a genuine outpour of emotion. You weren't asking a question. I said, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but if we have to take some time out, discuss
like a
plot
monster.
points, then it's not. Yeah.
You sound like an emotional monster.
Right. These are the rules, and you abide by the rules.
So you're
take off your shoes.
You're with me. You wouldn't.
I keep mine on.
You wouldn't go to anything like this.
No, I wouldn't. Unless it's something, if uniformly. Yeah, that's a word. Sure. Uniformly, like everybody in the group doesn't care about football. Great. Because I don't, But if it's something that I want to pay attention to, like the World Series, because I love baseball,
there you go.
I actually would rather sit with people who are on the same page. And I think that's what it comes down to, is like
Bunch
find
of
the people who
fucking
are on the
Sox
same
fans.
page. I'm a Sox fan. So, I want to watch. I want to watch with intent. I think it comes down to what the show is.
Yeah.
So, like you have a personal attachment to a show that really hits you in a certain way. You're not going to want to watch that at a party.
Nah.
An awards season, whatever.
We're big on the awards.
Yeah.
But as I said, after having the, because I kept making more and more friends each year, and I'm like, I better invite these people. And then at a certain point, I'm like,
Fuck all these people.
Yeah, but they may not be good at a viewing party because they need to keep talking and they need to get up and they're
And also,
fidgety.
a narrative show is different than an awards show, because awards show, it's just like there's everyone knows to focus up on these points when things happen.
Yeah.
Whereas on a narrative show, like it's just
I would say that
Yeah.
some people don't even know when to focus in on fucking things.
okay.
I think smart. Like
When someone's standing at the microphone talking, it's probably a quiet time.
then
I want to hear what that sound mixer has to say. Fuck you for not. That's his big moment or her big moment. See what I did there? It's
Are you being
2017.
transclusive?
Yeah. I'm going to include female sound mixers.
All right. Fucking trailblazer over here.
Okay, well, speaking of themes, themes are all the rage of our generation. Our generation is obsessed with themes. Every event has to have a theme now, even fucking weddings. The most important of all events, weddings. I just got invited to a wedding. I am very excited to go to this wedding because it is for two people I know and I love, and I love, and I love that they're in love. And just for this occasion, I'm thrilled that I get to go there, I get to look my best, I get to wear my stylish suit that I own for these things. Maybe it's the only stylish, nice thing I own. I own this very nice suit, I'm very happy with it, I wish I could wear it all the time. But here's the thing. It turns out this wedding calls for vintage formal wear. Vintage. And this is now the third wedding I've been invited to with this fucking vintage theme. Vintage, like I own a zoot suit from the 1930s in the back of my closet. Vintage, as if I was an extra on fucking Boardwalk Empire. As if I'm Will Nucky Thompson Link. Look, what's the point of owning a nice suit if you're gonna hit me up with this shit? Now I have to go shopping for vintage attire? What's that even mean? Where do I go? How much is this going to cost me? And that's why you, vintage weddings, are this week's enemy of the podcast. Go fuck yourself. Sure, I'll buy a vintage suit, but just know that I'm taking it out of your gift. This is a problem now.
Well, because you doing a wedding. If you had invested in that vintage suit, you would have gotten your money's worth of using it.
But you know
But
what?
also you need spats. You need suspenders.
Yeah, well, if I'm going to do it, I am going to get spats. I'm going to go all out.
You need a fedora.
Listen, I don't want to deal with this. And here's what's going to end up happening. I'm just going to be like, I own a fucking suit. I'm wearing the suit. I'm going to show up. I'm going to be no fun at the wedding. I'll dance. I'll drink. I'll be social. But everyone's going to look at that
how noble
guy.
of you.
But you want to
I
know
know.
what?
Oh, look at that.
But you want to know what? I'm not going to, and people are going to be like, why?
You're not bagging a bridesmaid. Because you're not the fun guy that's got that's on point.
There'll be one disillusioned bridesmaid who's like, this guy knows this is all bullshit. Here's the thing. I love these people. I haven't said this to them. They'll probably listen to the episode now and be like, that fucking guy.
Yeah, but come on. It's like when people have a destination wedding and then expect you to go.
Yeah.
And they if you want me to
But it's only Fiji in April.
yeah, which is the perfect time to go. Like, if you want me to really overexert myself in order to come to your wedding, and really it should just be about coming to your wedding, then I'm just not gonna go.
You're like, you know what? I'll dress up for your second wedding, not the first one, not for the trial run.
Here's the thing. I bought a suit so I didn't have to go shopping for other suits. I don't want to go shopping for other suits. That's the thing. If Jonathan, if you came in here and said, Will, here's a suit. You wear this vintage suit. It won't work. We're not the same size. But let's say you just had one in my size.
Yeah,
and you
sure.
said, Will, wear this vintage suit.
Fine.
I would wear it.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd wear it.
Sure.
I just don't want any more difficulty.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I'm serious about this. You're going to get a much nicer gift if I don't have to buy anything.
Or rent
Why
a
don't
suit.
you just wear that suit that you love, that you have, and get one of those ruffle shirts underneath? So you add
a tux
vintage
shirt?
tut. No, yeah, I guess.
No, but the ruffle shirt's something like a 70s prom. But this is for like,
ruffle.
so it's vintage. So this
Because
is
that's
1930s.
Vintage could be anything.
Because that's vintage. So see, you add your own flair to that.
I'll
You
tell you
add a
what.
vintage flair.
I'm never getting rid of the suit, by the way, because
You're going to be buried in it.
well, my whole thing is like 20 years from now, if I get invited to some vintage thing, now I've got the,
You know, it's classic 2009.
Yeah.
Circa 2009 when you go to the aughts party.
I'm just saying.
So with your Generation 3 iPad.
I show up at this wedding, are people going to be like, this fucking guy's no fun? Because I'm pretty sure the last one I showed up at, just a normal suit, they were like, this guy's no fun.
I think you can prove your fun
With a ruffled shirt?
with a ruffle shirt.
With a ruffle shirt.
Actually, with a ruffle shirt and a big bow tie.
Some people have said just get a vintage tie.
Well, what color is this suit? Let's dive in. Let's dig
gray.
in. It's gray.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do.
I have an old Armani. I have an old Armani
You got
tie.
wait.
Yeah,
This man's
I've got it. Okay. So you have to get yourself a hot pink magenta, like neon
Shirt.
cummerbund and bow tie. And you turn that into like an 80s prom.
Yeah. That's easy. You can do that.
That's easy, right?
Yeah.
And not only will you have, you can get that. You can get that online.
Yeah.
So pick that up. Get your cummerbund. Get a white shirt. Get the hot pink tie that matches it, or aqua, whatever.
Yeah.
Not only.
And you can get a clip-on bow tie. It doesn't have to be like a...
See, you don't have to go that far. You don't have to know how to tie a bow tie.
But now I feel like I'm undermining how good I think I look in my suit.
Oh no! You you look good in that suit. So you're dressing it up to create a vintage look, like you're creating an 80s prom look.
How much of this problem is Will is just hopelessly straight?
I think that's the biggest issue. That is the biggest issue.
Now, let me tell you what, that's a big issue with a lot of things in my life.
But also just theme parties in general. We've always talked about this. We bitch about Halloween. Neither Will or myself are big dress-up people. If I see a theme party, it's like, sorry, I'd rather sit home and read F. Scott Fitzgerald than dress as him for tonight. It's the score 80s parties.
Are you going to a lot of Gatsby parties? You get invited to Gatsby
No.
parties?
There's always like...
That was the thing
There's
with
always these
Leo
like
in
young
the movie.
Jewish professionals like Flappers Night. I'm like, no, I'll stay single. I must not care about love that much.
Yeah,
I do
didn't
like
live
that
in the 20s.
I do like that flapper look for
Yeah, but you're still going to show up in the same suit. You're not dressing like, Jay Gatz.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're expecting you to at this wedding. So this is why I'm going to push this. I have
I think
your
it's a
look
good idea because
down.
you can just do the cummerbund and the bow
Yep.
tie, and
Yep.
it's fast.
I think we solved problems.
This is a dear friend.
Yeah.
Like, like...
And you'll look good in the pictures. You'll like it once you're there.
You will, and that's gonna be a great statement too, because everybody's gonna go with this like 20s look,
Yeah.
and here you are with an 80s vintage look.
And also, they're going to be like, look, Will, we know he fucking hates this shit. We heard him scream about it on the podcast, but look how much effort he put into this.
I think there's also a reason why I wasn't informed about this detail, even though I've been informed of every
They're
other
like,
detail.
don't tell Will, don't tell Will. You walk in the room, they get quiet.
What do the groomsmen do in this situation?
Not your prom.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, exactly. They have to kick in a decent amount of money anyway.
I've been a groomsman 6 times and a best man once. Always a groomsman, never a groom.
There you go.
We got to fix that at this wedding.
It'll change at this wedding.
Maybe it will. I got to
That's
wait till
right.
October then.
Jeez.
I'll be alone till October.
Oh, so I love that you're complaining about this now, and it's happening in a while.
Well, look, it's
It's
been
good to be prepared.
It's been a long month.
It
Yeah.
has. I can't imagine us living till October.
Speaking of things we live for, I always like to end on a weird note, and unless there's also
dead
fast food news.
Fast food news.
Fast food news. We should get a theme. KFC has created a fried chicken pizza. It's a pizza that instead of bread uses fried chicken as a crust. It's called a Cheeza.
Chizza.
And right now, it's been doing big business in the Philippines and Singapore, and it is going to come here to America. I ask you, Jonathan, is this completely disgusting, or is it really just low-rent chicken parm?
Oh, that's a good point, isn't it? This is chicken parm, but probably a bit flatter, right? If you can turn mashed cauliflower into a pizza crust, I guess you can turn fried chicken into it. But I wish they'd just stop. Really,
I remember when KFC did the double down, which was like 2 pieces of chicken and like cheese and ham, and I'm like, oh, you basically just made low rent chicken cordon bleu. And that's what. So the first thing my head was like, oh yeah, I mean all the ingredients aren't bad.
The execution is.
Yeah, it's the way they're presenting it.
Yeah.
And like why?
Well, listen, leave it up to the legacy of an old Southern colonel to knock off a bunch of cultural foods.
Here's what really disgusted me, though. There was, like, you know, I'm like, oh, low-rent chicken parm. I view it as chicken parm. But then I was seeing the photos out of the Philippines. And they're, like, putting pineapple on it, like pizza toppings.
No.
Which, first of all, pineapple on your pizza, go fuck yourself.
No, you bite your tongue. Pineapple on pizza is amazing.
Love it.
Yes.
Ham and pineapple?
Yes.
Would you
thank
put pineapple on chicken parmesan?
No, but it's different from a pizza.
Yeah, pineapple on pizza is genius.
Yeah.
No, it's terrible. Neither of you are from New York. It's terrible.
So good.
You know, you've lived there.
Yeah, I have lived in New York, but I'm from a better place, Boston.
You get pineapple. No, you got pineapple and extra garlic on your pizza. It's good stuff.
Let me tell you what, pineapple
tasty.
pizza. The Prime Minister of Iceland, did you see this?
What?
He came out against pineapple on pizza.
Well, because they don't have them there.
He was asked about what he thinks of pineapple on pizza. Why was he asked about this? Because things are going much better in Iceland than they are here. So they asked the Prime Minister there.
Yeah, so those are the pressing questions.
Yeah.
And he said, although they said he was joking.
I didn't see the young Pope ask the Prime Minister of Iceland.
He said, what did he say? He said if he could have pineapple banned from pizza, he would.
Okay, sure, it's a crushing problem in Iceland.
And by the way, young Pope talked to the Prime Minister of Greenland.
Oh, you're right. It wasn't Iceland. And then she danced to that pop song.
Because the people of Greenland, much like the people of South America, love to dance.
Interesting.
Yes.
And on that note, Jonathan, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
One more time, tell us about the Big Blue To Do.
The Big Blue To Do podcast. Please subscribe. You can find it on iTunes, SoundCloud, or other podcast catchers. And it's on Instagram, too.
And if you enjoyed the political portion of this, if you liked what was going on, give it a listen.
Yep.
It's good. Like I said, I've listened to 2 episodes so far. I've really enjoyed it, and I am subscribed, and so should you.
Thank you.
You can find me at the Sean David on all pertinent forms of social media and some impertinent ones.
You can follow me on Twitter at The Real Will Link. I'm finally... I kind of stopped doing shows for a little while, too, for different reasons. But I've booked some shows. I'm doing a lot of shows in April.
Okay.
So we got some time. But I'm going to be doing Sit and Spin in April again. And I'm going to be doing Tales of Tinseltown, which is Megan Hayes and Oscar Sagastumi.
There you go.
I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, as I always do.
So we do that in April. Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds exciting.
On the show next week, it's our Oscar recap. We're going to tell you...
Who won? And what we thought about it. And about the show, and how did Jimmy Kimmel do, and was it funny, and how woke was the show?
And then we're taking a little hiatus.
Yeah, taking a little break for a couple weeks. Yeah.
First time was going. That's not true. We went on hiatus once.
Yeah, but not for a sustained period. But don't worry, people. We're going to come back better and stronger than ever. But we need to take a little mid-year break because personal stuff is going to make it tough to record. So.
Okay.
And on that note, JBW, thank you.
Thank you.
And for the Will Sean Podcast, I'm Sean David.
I'm Will Link.
We're finished.
We're finished.